Theory content in topic number 4, production planning and control. Okay. Content 4.1 to 4.3 is the 4.1 is the complete summary of complete fourth unit summary. Okay. So the topic is production planning and control. So let me go for the content page and come back here. So this is the content of fourth unit, production planning and control. Here we'll go for the introduction. Actually, we say it's introduction, but it's not introduction. It's going to be a summary of fourth unit. So what and all we are studying? Probably we have done with all these topics, right? Optimum LPP has to be done. Transportation assignment we have done. Scheduling we have done. Cubing model, simulation, drawing balancing. All these things are done. All these are related with production planning and control. So before going for the problem side, we need to go for a wider intro of the theory content. Okay. So 4.1 here will be the complete summary of fourth unit production planning and control. Then we will actually go for saying or discussing what do you mean by production planning and control. So 4.2 is the original introduction of fourth unit. Then before continuing with the practical side, there is problem side. We'll be discussing time and motion study. Okay, what do you mean by study is what we're going to analyze, right? Okay, what is actually happening, what is the current situation, etc. So this is related to control measures. So time and motion study, method study, and work study. Actually, this is a small content like okay, 4.1 is a summary content, but even though it's a summary one, it goes for pages and pages. But that's going to be a very small content only compared to other theory contents. So let me go for 4.1. So when we talk about production planning and control, we need to apply this concept in various fields, probably in which areas will be applying. National planning and budgeting. Yes. See, please don't think this as a OM paper. Just think this is a normal paper, like okay. So right now we are going to apply this planning. Preparation of 5 years budgets, annual budgets, forecasting income and expenditure. This is all completely national, right? Completely related to government side. Okay, how you're going to schedule major projects of national importance, how you're going to estimate GNP, GDP, complete macroeconomic side. So generation, agricultural yields and all. If you go for the defense side, yes, we also apply this production planning and control in defense side also probably. You being a future cost accountants, definitely you may be serving for defense also. Okay. So development of new technology, probably you know this recent war. I don't want to mention the country's name. In the recent war, we were using the drone systems and so many AI technologies are being applied. How are you going to optimize the cost and time in these defense projects? And how are you going to evaluate the technology and equipment what we are using? And what about the defense factories? Where is going to be situated? What about the threat analysis? That's the risk and effective battle strategies and tactics. Strategy is defining what you're going to do, and tactics is implementing the strategy. How are you going to maintain and replace the equipments? What's the strategy of defense you are following during war and peace? And vendor evaluation and canteen store departments, inventory control, transportation problems during mobilization operations. So you shift from place to place. In those cases, mock simulation exercises and ideal locations where you can have the supply depots, the godowns like. This is the case of defense. Whereas if you go for industrial side, it's completely what we did in the earlier topics. Plant location, siting, finance planning. So what's the capital investment, product and process planning, how we are going to manage the inventory, EOQ and EPQ models, okay, maintenance management and replacement of machineries, how we are going to deal with the purchasing, vendor evaluation, and how we are going to bid that. So most of the cases it goes in tender, auction sales, facility planning, and where you're going to construct the factory building and the personal management, HR side. Whereas if we go for the other angle related to R&D and engineering, what's the technology will be in the future? Okay, and how the technology is evaluated, how we are going to manage it, how we are going to negotiate it, and how we are going to value preparations for tender, what type of turnkey projects you are going to carry over, and how we are going to manage that, and value engineering, selection of components, work and method study, and activity sampling. So all these will be done in R&D and engineering. Whereas we go for the management side, business management and competition, how much capital investment should go this year or in the forecast in the future years, depending on the forecast, and what are the returns? So we say as ROI, right? So if you talk about the financial management side, we say cost of capital. Remember cost of capital, cost of debt capitals and all. Market research techniques, market survey and analysis has to be done. Yeah, even the advertisement outlays plays an important role, and how we can go with the optimality on advertisement outlays. What are the strategy formation we can discuss on? What about the risk and uncertainty? So when we talk about the directors team, how far they are managing the risk, that also is the beauty of their management. Sales force, distribution, and selection of business and areas of operations. Yes, other angle, agriculture and irrigation. How are you going to manage the irrigation projects, the dams, storage of water sources, major dams? How can you construct at minimum cost? So it's minimum cost, not compromising the quality. Okay, dam இடிஞ்சு இல்ல மாதிரி எல்லாம் கட்டக்கூடாது இல்ல நீங்க கொடுத்த பணத்துக்கு அவ்வளவுதான் கட்ட முடியும்ட்டு. Okay, irrigation canals. So how are you going to look at the supply points? So where you're going to have this seeds and fertilizers, so that it is reachable to the farmers. The collection points of agriculture. Then we'll go for the education and training side. Number of schools and locations, how many, optimum mix of students and teachers ratio, financial outlay, laying with national objectives, location of exam centers, number of students of each center, how the supply report of educational institutes will be made available, and the supply of textbooks and stationery, how it can be made available. Whereas if we go for PWD department, so we are talking about the construction, the infra side. So how about the cost control on roads, bridges, and buildings? How long it will take to complete the projects as decided, or it's delaying the projects, like what are the time estimates of various activities, how you're going to select the machines and equipments, maintenance, how you're going to do, whether you're going to replace it, and how you're going to prepare the budgets, tender evaluation, and selection of this. Whereas if you go for transportation and communication, we have to focus how about the public transport. So during the festival times, we have this public transport extended, right? Or we have this railways, rail coaches extended, or number of special trains introduced, maybe optimum routing of buses, yes, obviously to maximize the utility. How you're going to forecast the income, and how you're going to estimate the expenses, what will happen, and what about the railway projects, whether it's working within the time frame and cost frame, railway network distribution, telephone demand is also matters. Then selection of exchanges and busy hour call, like telephone exchanges, sometimes they are becoming busy, so on that kind. Home management and budgeting side, control of expenses to maximize saving, purchase of provisions, like how much order, that is, we are talking about EOK, how much to order, how much to store and all. Time management, work study methods in kitchen activity, okay, because it's home management, we have to talk about kitchen activity, time study methods. So this is about 4.3, work study, time study and all. How are you going to prepare the budgets item wise, like how much provisions we need, petrol we need, vegetables we need, and probably if you're talking about the Satano and all, eggs and what food they provide, etc. Dress, entertainment, education expenditure, investment of surplus income. Yes, if you have a surplus income, how can you invest? Probably we might be needing that in the future. What type of appropriate investment is needed, because we will be having different alternatives so that your income is minimizing the income tax and other taxes. Appropriate insurance of life and properties, and depreciation and optimum premium of insurance has to be considered. So I think we have 10 areas, right? So you might be expecting any one or two areas. So write the areas of application on any one of the areas. You just go for a glance once or twice, that will help you. So don't try to memorize and all. That's a big list. If you want to add more, also you can. This heading often repeated when compared to the earlier one. Earlier one, we have 10 headings and randomly anyone is asked. But when you go for this heading, how you are going to solve this production planning related things using operational research. So this is often repeated. Actually, it involves 6 steps. First one, you have to formulate the problem. When we say operation research, actually operation research, we have so many problem solving techniques, like transportation problem we have, simulation problem we have, assignment problem we have, simplex method we have so many methods. So when we say this as a heading, operation research, it clearly mentions that it's a problem solving technique. Probably you might be expecting this is a fourth question. Okay. So we need to get an accurate solution is we can get using this problem solving techniques. We'll be actually defining the terms, we'll be checking the environment, what's happening, we'll check the environmental factors, and we make some assumptions. And depending on that assumptions, probably simulation is based on some type of assumptions, right? Depending on the past, we are forecasting the future with the help of simulation, probability technique, intentions and objectives and constraints, and we identify the factors. What's the output, what's the processor, what's the objective behind that, what are the constraints we might be facing, the restrictions, which are the independent variables, which are usually called as controllable variables, and some decision variables which are called as dependent variables, and some parameters which is called as independent variables. This is often asked, probably can make a note on one word questions. Okay. After analyzing all these background work, then we go for making a model. Okay, which means you analyze the problem and identify which factors, like we might be talking about input or we might be talking about output. Then you establish the relationship between the input and the output. So usually when we say the term input, it's referred to as parameters, whereas we say output is a decision variable that is dependent and independent variable. And it will be giving information on the relation and the constraints. So if you talk about this model, this linear programming problem model, there will be one objective function, either minimizing or maximizing. See, our intention is optimizing, so it can be both minimizing or maximizing, but usually we talk about minimizing. See, being cost controllers, when we talk about cost, you need to reduce the cost. So wherever we talk, most of the cases, transportation problem or assignment problem or wherever we talk, we first follow the minimization models. Okay, so minimizing z, which is defined in terms of function f of x, is objective function, and we may be having some set of constraints and the non-default constraint. Okay, not non-default, non-negative constraint. Why it is non-negative? Because it's greater than or equal to 0. If you take the line, this is 0, this is positive side, this is negative side. They say 0 or greater than 0. So it's not going to be negative. It's non-negative constraint. Okay. Then after that, you have to find the problem. So we solve the problems actually deriving the values. So that's why it's called as derivation side. Using the scientific methods like linear programming or transportation or assignment, or we have even game theory. Probably you don't have at inter level. You have this in the final level. Okay. See, in final, you'll be studying one paper called as SCM, Strategic Cost Management and More. Costing and this OM paper clubbed together is SCM. Okay. So one part, I think, key person or something is just the OM. Whatever the OM book what you are having here, probably that will be renamed as SCM and I'll be giving the code there. Okay. Game theory unknown will be additional topic over there. Okay. Other things, game theory, everything is over there. Okay. Even calculus one part is over there. Then we validate the model. So what do you mean or why we need this valuation? Validation is we need to know whether the result which is arrived using this model is reliable or not. How do you say it's reliable? Because we are giving some conditions or assumptions based on that we have to work. Okay. So some original assumptions will be there and sometimes we will be developing the model based on that. So we need to check. See, during that period that model was needed, but what happens in the future? Whether this is going to work. Then we'll go for feedback and taking over the control. Okay, depending on the environmental condition. That's why we call it as warming environment. Warming, not warming, warming. Warming கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சம் இருக்கு like மாறிக்கிட்டே இருக்கு. It's not steady like dynamic environment. Okay. And depending on the number of assumptions, what is the cost and quality of information of variables we have as stream. So when we talk about the information variables, that may be related to labor or materials or sometimes performance also matters. So performance characteristics, what type of plant and machinery we are using. So what type of technology is behind that working on, and market conditions like price, demand, and also why this variable is needed because some many things are changing, and because of that change, my original solution also gets affected. So I hence apply to make the solution solve with the acceptable. So control is applied either on the method of solution or on the design of the model. That's about we are going to study in 4.3. Method சரியாலாம் discuss after doing all this, now we have to go for implementation. Now comes the ORT. So they will be working in close coordination with the field staff. They will check whether the operating conditions of the solution, what we have defined, and the basic assumptions are all done properly. So this will be the briefing done by the field staff. Okay. And they will check out what are the limitations along with the advantages and the capabilities. And in clear terms, they will clearly define what is the method of operation and procedure. So this is actually implementing means the theoretical team which were working completely behind, they are completely in coordination with the field staff. That is the implementing team and they'll be completely working in close connection. So that's about the sixth methodology in OR. Actually, we have three methods. The first is analytical method, also called as the deterministic method. It's mostly based on mathematical side. Okay, probably you don't have mathematics. Probably you might have done in your foundation level or in your school or college level. The calculus side or the integration, integral calculus, differential calculus, working on set theory, matrices, vector algebra, coordinate geometry. All these are all analytical methods, which means there is a mathematical model and you follow that. And when we apply this analytical method in OR, we are using EOQ model. You remember the formula root of 2AO divided by C. Also, we have the graphical solution. where we'll be solving this linear programming problem. Okay, so that's about analytical model. Yes, sometimes this trial and error method we might be most of the cases helpful. Try பண்ணி பார்ப்போமே அப்படிங்கிறது trial and error method. Why this analytical method not suitable means sometimes we need to see sometimes calculus might be feeling tough like okay we don't know why we are solving so many things. So sometimes what happens is if set of assumptions or set of conditions are given and we are finding the solution using the analytical method, that analytical method which has provided the solution is workable in that particular assumptions only. ஒரு நாலஞ்சு assumption கொடுத்து work பண்ணா அந்த assumption குள்ளே தான் கரெக்டா இருக்கும். So if I'm changing any one of the assumption or if what the assumption is not working, the conditions are not working, then there's going to be a big limitation. So because of this, so the classical or graphical method or mathematical method is not yielding a solution, or because of this limitation, we had to go for this trial or method. And this is also a deterministic method. So you're going to determine something. Probably there'll be a certain algorithm. You start with the initial solution, then you will just step by step will work on. Probably assignment problem. What we are doing? We are trying to remediate the solution. So we'll go for the trial solution. We'll repeat the certain set of rules, gradually modify at each subsequent solution till we go for finding the optimal solution. We check for the optimality. Probably example, linear programming we do. Like simplex method. We have simplex method, we have transportation method, we have assignment method, you can include everything. And the third method, beautiful method, simulation method, where we completely use the concept of sampling and probability because we are going to work in an environment is not certain. Uncertain environment work பண்ண போறோம். So the situation is not certain, the data is not sufficient. So that measurement வச்சு நம்மளால follow பண்ண முடியாது. So we have to go for sampling and probability side. So when we go sampling, we are trying to relate to the real situation. As if this is the real situation, how we'll react to. Then probably we take the help of random tables. So we take the help of random numbers. We take the help of mechanical devices, electronic computers. Probably we use stochastic models. In the simulation model, we are using Monte Carlo simulation. In aircraft, they are using aircraft simulation. So many things we. So shall I continue? Operational research techniques. So these are all techniques we have: probability theory, statistical methods, frequency distribution, graphical selection. See, you don't worry all about this heading, okay? Probably you know this heading, right? Break-even analysis, you know. Discounted cash flow, you know. Just go for the FM side. Okay. What are the headings? Go read the OM content page, go read the FM content page. That's the answer for this. So you need not worry. See, linear program, simplex, these are all the OM's content page. Break-even analysis, this one, this one, this one, and this one, all is FM's content page. Over. Okay, அந்த content page, இந்த content page சேர்த்து போட்டா நல்லா இருக்குல்ல. Okay. So see, the heading is not a list, is not a small one. You can please make on your own. I'll go for the next heading, okay? So nature, application specific. Depending on what type of nature or what type of things you're doing. So you go for the most appropriate technique, which one you are selecting, and you just apply it, okay? On different functional areas, if we talk about, so our intention is to talk about production only. So if the problem is on sighting, it's not sitting, can please make a note of it. Sighting. Double T is there. There is only one single T. You can correct it over here in the material. Sighting and location. We use routing travel charts and location dynamics and all. When we talk about where the factory layout should be there and how it has to be mapped, production planning and all, we have this method called as profitability analysis and product line analysis. When we talk about process planning, we have line of balance, routing, using the Gantt charts and all. Technology selection, we have decision matrix with evaluation. Facility planning, how we are going to make use of the additional capital or capital investment, which type of plant has to be selected, recap analysis, discounted cash flow, you know. Workstation design using line balancing or heuristic methods we have that. Capacity planning, we have break-even method, break analysis, decision tree, statistical methods, selection of plant product mix. This piece, capital, please make a note of it. Probably you can make a note of this table because you might be using in the one-word questions. That might be helpful. We have break-even mathematical methods, DCF, discounted cash flow, net profit method, linear programming, simplex method, linear programming, graphical method, production planning and control, sequencing, assignment, and scheduling. A capstone. Okay. So this is production side. When you talk about R&D and engineering, when the problem is related to technological selection or system analysis, you will be applying the force decision matrix technique or statistical probability or statistical frequency distribution technique. If you talk about the materials management side, we'll be talking if the problem is about warehouse or storing, we'll be talking about transportation problem, EOQ, ABC analysis, vital essential decision analysis. So you know like ABC, okay, which one has to be given more importance? ABC analysis. This VED is vital essential, which is vital, which is important, which is essential. Okay. Biryani essential, பழைய சாதம் essential. இது ஒண்ணுமே கிடைக்கல பழைய சாதம் தான் போதும் எசென்சியல். ஓகே. எப்போ பழைய சாதம் தான் சாப்பிடுறோம். இந்த தீபாவளிக்கு பிரியாணி சாப்பிடுறோமே அப்படின்னு சொன்னா that becomes important like okay important is different essential is different and depending on that you make the decision. Okay. Layout, inventory, and control and vendor rating. If your specific problem is, you'll use the take the help of functional analysis and force the decision matrix analysis. For value engineering or make or buy decision, you go for break-even analysis or decision tree analysis or DCA, discounted cash flow analysis. Whereas if we talk about quality problems, so we know this ISO model and all, right? Okay. So inward goods. So the problem is related to inward goods or inspection. We might be using statistical quality control. So statistical quality control, we'll say SQC models, probability, AQL models. We have this line, baseline and OC curves. Whereas outward goods inspection, more or less the same headings. And process inspection, we have statistical frequency distribution and CSP. So how far you can allow the process inspection. The variation and inspect பண்ணும்போது 10% variation இருக்கலாம் அப்படிங்கிறது. If you talk about the servicing industry side, if the problem is on optimum efficiency, then we'll go for queuing theory. So in the banks, how long you're going to wait in the bank? Okay. The banks at least is okay, everything is available in the mobile phone. Sometimes it happens during Diwali season for many of the people, Diwali outing is they will be waiting. When the Diwali seasons will come, when they can go out, then when they can go for purchasing. நிறைய பேருக்கு வருஷத்துக்கு ஒரு அவுட்டிங்கே இருந்தோம். இந்த வில்லேஜ் சைட்ல இருக்கிறவங்க எல்லாம் டிராக்டரை போட்டு வந்துருவாங்க, கூட்டமா வந்துருவாங்க. See, queuing theory, how are you going to manage the queue? That's happening in the service industry, okay? Saving of waiting time using the Monte Carlo simulation. You remember the doctor and patient example. The doctor, how long he has to wait? Idle time. Patient, how long he has to wait under. If you go for maintenance management, if your problem is of maximization of utilization and minimization of cost, yes, you can go for replacement theory or statistical DCF or MAPI methods or average index search பார்க்கிறது. Project management side, if the specific problem is time estimate, then statistics and frequency distribution. If the problems of minimization of time, PERT method. If the specific problems of minimization of cost, CPM method. Okay, CPM method. So marketing management, if the problem is on forecasting demand, we'll go for trend analysis. Okay, the normal equation method, probability and statistics. If it is marketing related or strategy related one, then we can go for game theory, Marcos chain simulation, and so on. If it is related to finance management, if your specific problem is capital investment, then we'll go all these one FM. Okay, costing method, we'll go for analysis and all. Okay, so that's about the different headings. Can you this heading, nature and characteristics of over, somewhat often asked question. It's evident from the definition itself when we say over, it's completely realistic. What do you mean by over? There is a problem. Okay, see everywhere we'll be having a problem, and we need to have the intention to solve the problem. Please make a note of it. Beautiful point. ஆமா ப்ராப்ளம் இருந்தா சால்வ் பண்ணுவோம் தானே, அப்படி இல்ல ப்ராப்ளம் இருக்குன்னா சால்வ் பண்ணணும்னு அவசியம் ப்ராப்ளம் ட்ராப் பண்ணிட்டு போயிடலாம். கரெக்டா? Okay. Usually I give this example, LG mobile phones. Usually I discuss this one, right? LG mobile phones. Then they thought that manufacturing more models and developing creativity in mobile phones is useless. They thought, okay, we cannot talk about Samsung, we cannot talk about Oppo or Redmi and all. Then LG thought that thinking creativity on mobile phone is waste. They did not see this as a problem, they dropped and went off. See, whenever there is an intention for you that you have to solve the problem, then you talk about this. Am I right? How are you going to apply this concept? So what type of analysis you're going to do? And what is the approach you're going to use? Probably we have seen so many methods, right? Depending on the nature, depending on which type of management you're carrying on. And we'll be forming a group called as a ORT. The different specialists will be there. And there'll be a multidisciplinary team also because the OR team will be working on the operation research side. There'll be a cost controlling team. There'll be a technical, like talking about AI is taking the way. So that team will be there. So everybody will be joining. So that's why we call as multidisciplinary team will be there. And this team who will be constituting, who will be composing this management. So management will be composing this team. And OR, that's OR team will be assisting the management to take decisions, and the results of recommended in nature. There may be a number of problems existing, but you're choosing which one is the optimum one, the most appropriate one, so that it meets with the objective along with the constraints in the quantifiable term. And yes, please highlight the last point also. It has to be practical, application specific, and result oriented. சும்மா time waste பண்றதுக்காக பண்ணலாம். Okay. Scope of operational research not confined to any specific in the agency. Everywhere we use it. Okay, so this is a common topic in human activity, in defense, in medicine, everywhere you use it. Okay, so it's a very big list, illustrative list. Already we have done this one probably. Then you can cut code பண்ணிடலாம். Already we have done this one. Okay, can please strike out. Can please strike out for me? Can please strike out. Functions of OR. Yes, you can please make a note of this one. Provide scientific basis to decision analysis because we have some mathematical model or trial or error. It's also like most of the time we help any one method and that's going to be helpful for us. Probably there may be some complex problems. Yeah, this is again a beautiful point. Sometimes it will not be giving you the solution. Some complex problems will be there. With the help of this one, it will be reduced to simple problems. After that, you go for finding the solution. Okay, bringing in trade offers, like what type of situations you are going to come across. Okay, the example is inventory control is a very good example. So we have 3 points in this. What's the manager's role and how they are going to play the role of it? So if we talk about the or in terms of or in point of production manager view, he will be talking about what is the sufficient and timely stocking of raw materials. His headache is up that one, right? What about the components? How he has to go hold up the stocks and all. So you should not have a fear that stock galage na enna பண்ணுது அப்படின்னு போறது. Okay. If we talk about the materials manager side, we will be recommending a course to order minimum quantity, how much is going to order and all. Then again the trade-offs will be there. Next fourth point, so that's coming up below the third point. I'm sorry for that. There's a small misalignment that's coming below the third point. Okay. So fourth point, provide system integration. So what type of approach? There will be some number of subsystems, how it's going to be fully integrated, what are the different disciplines you're applying and sub-optimization and all. Then optimization of resources. Sometimes resources are not available always. So it's scarce. So what are the functional analysis you're utilizing? How you're going to minimize the time? That's very important. So time, you cannot equate directly to cost. When the time is minimized, probably you can take the help of the other workers who are not involved in that. So we can make the other resources to work on other side. So we may be taking the help of BERT, cubic theory, transportation algorithm, and other cases and all. Minimizing cost also matters where we can take the techniques linear programming, critical path method, assignment algorithm in loading missions, EvoQ concept in inventory and all. Then maximizing profit, we can talk about LLP, so not LLP, LPP, per CPM, transportation, cubic theory, break-even concept, decision tree. Then we go for selection of best alternative. So we'll check with how different countries, how different terms they are offering, which state of art technology will be helpful, how difficult this comparison can be done. Then the managers also find difficult to make the proper comparison. So what they do is they go for ranking, the grading method, a point rating method and all will follow. And what are the techniques applied over here? Game theory, okay, bid valuation method, that's what you call as post decision method. NPV, DCF, break-even analysis, and decision tree approach, probably make or buy decision. Solution to specific problems, probably line balancing or how you're going to design the workstation, which appropriate machine will be helpful, how you're going to design the capacity, what are the number of observations available in the time study, and how you're going to check whether which machinery has come out of original alignment and accuracy. All these things will be done. So this is about the 10 points. Let me finish off this heading. Okay, limitations. Sometimes there'll be an information gap. This always happen, right? Not only in OR, wherever you talk, there'll be a gap between the management and the that specific thing. Okay. So how that specialist work and how this gap has to be managed is a big task here. So there may be involving many mathematical manipulations. So we take the help of game theory, statistical analysis, probability, queuing theory, probably in the see the gap has to be filled like இப்படி இருக்குமா for each and everything you cannot go and ask the management to clarify a small thing and all அப்ப என்ன பண்ணணும் most of the cases வந்து நம்ம ப்ராப்பர்ட்டி வச்சு தான் ஒர்க் பண்ணோம் and most of the cases during the environment dynamic இருக்கனால we have to go on probability only we have to go on probabilistic method only. So how the manager is working and how the ORS specialist working, we are comparing this on disabilities. Okay. So probably when you talk about the manager, max பத்தி ஒரு உண்மையே தெரியாது. Okay. When you talk about the OR specialist, ஃபீலிங்ஸ் பத்தி ஒண்ணுமே தெரியாது. கரெக்ட்டா? Obviously, he will work only on mathematical methods, he will work only on numbers, he will not work on numbers. Okay, this happens usually. So consequences, that is, they develop a theoretical solution, but when it comes for practical side, when it comes to execution, goodwill, attitude, ஒரு ஹெச்ஆர்ல ஒரு டீம் ஒரு மெம்பர் வந்து ஆபீஸ்க்கு வரவே மாட்டாரு. ஆனா வந்தாருன்னா பக்காவா வேலையை முடிப்பாரு. அவரை நீங்க எப்படி ட்ரீட் பண்ணுவீங்க? லைக் குவான்டிஃபைபிளா நீங்க பார்க்க முடியாது. Sometimes you have to work only on finite variables. We cannot talk about hundreds and thousands of variables. ஒரு 4 வேரியபிள், 5 வேரியபிள், 10 வேரியபிள், 15 வேரியபிள் வச்சு ஒர்க் பண்ணலாம். அதுக்கு மேல ஒர்க் பண்ண முடியாது. So that's about dependent on independent variables. Limited number of constraints only. 100 conditions and 100 variations வச்சு நீங்க ஒர்க் பண்ண முடியாது. That's again one problem. Some limited number of constraints only will work. And single objective function has to be there. Minimization. Okay, so sometimes you cannot deal with software optimization. இது வரைக்கும் இருக்கட்டும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி டீல் பண்ண முடியாது. Okay, so that's about the 5 headings, 5 limitations. Yes, 4.1 is done. Can you please go through? So 4.2. Actually, this is the main introduction for this topic number 4. We are going to discuss in particular. So earlier topic we were discussing overall introduction about OR. Here we are particularly dealing with production planning and control. This is the main heading. So when we talk about production and operation, yes, this becomes a nervous system. So whenever you talk about the manufacturing industry or whatever it is. So when you talk about the production system, the primary concern is you have to deliver the products to the customers. You have to maintain the inventory stock as per predetermined schedule. Please highlight this word, predetermined schedule. So all the activities in the manufacturing or production cycle must be properly planned, must be properly coordinated, must be properly organized, must be properly controlled to achieve that objective. You focus on periods. Usually we say three terms, short term, middle term and long term. See, case to case is different. So most of the time when we say short term, we'll be saying several months to a year. Okay, if it's like 2 to 5 years, middle term, 1 to 2 years, depending on the weightage, you might be scheduling this as short term or middle term. And 7 to 10 years, we will be defining this as long term. Again, don't ask me, what about the 5 to 7? Middle term. So it happens sometimes. You can decide for the. For example, if you look out for a short term, that may be related to inventory goals or waging budgets. When you relate to middle term, that may be related to capital equipment budgeting, plant capacity and layout, whereas the long term plant construction and location, product design, line design, development and period and production planning and control, it will reflect the short range activities. Please highlight. We may be having 3 terms, but usually when we talk about production planning and control, if you are not going to buy the machinery, then we are going to talk about the short range activities only. So you relate directly, you focus on what are the issues and problems that arise and you deal with that. The nature of the system is somewhat complex and most of the time one industry will not manufacturing one product. Okay, most of the times it goes for many products. Importance is it is vital to exercise some kind of control. That's why we are planning about production planning and control. Objectives, the ultimate objective is to contribute to the profits. So ultimately we are business, we want to make profit. So that's our aim, that's our objective. Probably, even though profit is your objective, you have to meet the customer's satisfaction also. So how we are going to properly deliver the schedules. Continuing. Specific objective, you establish the rules and schedules, how it's working, what are the raw materials and laborers and machines you are going to optimally utilize them, how you are going to ensure that the plant is operating properly as per plan and all. That's why we say predetermined objectives. So we work with what are the areas we focus? Analyze to determine the raw materials that you order and what are the parts you manage. You answer to the question, what are the questions raised by the customers, how we are going to satisfy the customers' queries. Assist them, probably the costing department will be talking about cost estimate orders, the HR department will be talking about manpower. So how we are going to assist them. You take control over the stock of finished parts and products. You determine the necessary tools that are needed for manufacturing. You take the direct and control. You initiate it. You issue requisitions. You go for record keeping. Yes, you have to keep it up to date record. You go for stock maintenance. How you notify the sales and accounting. How you are going to prepare the room sheets and how you are going to prepare the schedules because it has to be predetermined. And production of work orders, how you're going to initiate it, and how you're going to receive and evaluate the reports, how you're going to receive the orders from the customers, how you're going to revise the plans if necessary. Probably sometimes it will not be working to the original plans. So I have to work on all that. Please don't try to memorize all these. You can just have a list. We'll go for functions of production control, planning, routing, scheduling, and not going line by line. Dispatching also matters here. Follow up and inspection. This is certainly done in this chart work. So you have to match the optimalities. So you go for follow up, which means whether work is going on as per the plan. Okay, routing, which you select the path, which one has to go to which place and other things and all. Dispatching, yes, dispatching is how you're going to assign the work. Okay, and scheduling, assigning different missions involved in the manufacturing process. Yeah, I have to involve all this. Yeah, this one you can please make a note of this. We have already discussed this one. There are six basic types of production control. One is block control. So when you go for block control, we'll be talking this block control in textiles and books and magazine. Yella magazine same illa. Probably a magazine is published once in a week. So other block. Okay. So need for separation of goods. That's about block control. So it will be done in batches and batches. Let's say talk about flow control. See chemicals, petroleum, glass, food manufacturing, processing, and all. If you talk about sugar factory, retail, tea factory, retail. So continuous production system. Here you have to highlight with respect to routing and schedules how it has to be done. Then you talk about load control. Probably sometimes the machine is breaking down. How you are going to manage it? Or sometimes there is a bottleneck capacity. Bottleneck because of bottleneck. You know the bottleneck because of the your production will be lowering. Okay. Order control. This is suitable for intermittent production system, applicable for job lot shots. Special project control like turnkey projects, construction of which office buildings. So some are specially designed. Even though building than an several than each and every project matters here. Batch control, it's quite important when you go for food processing industries. Okay. There's a difference between batch and block. Please try to understand. When you say batch control, a very good example you can understand is food processing. நீங்க ஏதோ ஒரு packet, Maggi packet, biscuit packet, ஏதோ ஒரு drink, ஏதோ ஒரு வாங்குனீங்கன்னா அதுல the batch போட்டிருப்பாங்க. Batch coding will be there. Okay, that batch is very much important. Okay, it is helpful in food and processing industries. Let me continue. We are particularly going to deal production planning and control in continuous production system. When you say continuous production system, there will be a fixed part material handling equipment will be there because it's continuously going to produce chemical, it's continuously going to produce gases and other things. High volume of production, yes, it will go in tons and tons and tons. Product layouts has to be particularly defined. Standardized products will be there. Sugar factory இருக்கு என்ன sugar பண்ணுவாங்க white sugar தான் பண்றாங்க. And rarely now comes for jaggery, powder sugar and other things and all, brown sugar or whatever it is. Produce to stock or long range orders. Yes. Produce பண்ணிட்டே இருப்பீங்க stock எடுத்துட்டே இருப்பீங்க. Same ஆகும். Probably might not be today. Might be sold in 5 days, 5 days after or 5 years also after. 5 years வரைக்கும் food processing வேலைக்கு ஆகாது. Chemicals depends on. Either maybe not maybe like 5 years, but some 2 years or something like that. Okay. Use of special purpose machines or automated machines because it's specifically going to work on that. So that will be involving two activities. How far the raw materials and supplies will be on hand. So that's why we might be talking about JIT and constant rate of flow of production has to be maintained, else it's not going to work. So that was the earlier one related to continuous production system. Now we'll go for intermittent production system. The characteristics here is general purpose production machines are normally utilized here because it's intermittent production only in between job shots. So probably the material handling will be done using hand trucks and forklifts. Relatively high cost and skilled labor is needed, okay, even though it's intermittent, and generally manufacture a wide range of products. Okay, so that's about intermittent production system. So that's about the second part. So probably you may expect any one of the two headings here, either continuous or intermittent production system. We'll go for the heading control measures. When we need to talk about the control measures, we need to discuss on three types of study, which is analysis and controlling methods. One is talking about time and motion. First one. Second one, about which method, the existing method, and what type of a work it is, work study. So time and motion study put together is what? Time and motion study, method study, and study work study. So when I go for time and motion study, definition is quite important because it looks like a time and motion and a method and a work and it looks like it's somewhat similar in nature. So let me go word by word. Okay, kindly bear with me. The definition of this time and motion study is a searching scientific analysis, obviously analyzing of the methods and equipment used or planned in doing a particular piece of work. See, it looks like work study. We are talking about the methods and equipments. So it will look like method study. Another bunch of carrot one. Okay, let me start from the beginning. Definition of method, time and method study. The scientific analysis of methods and equipments used. So what type of methods and what type of equipments you are using, or what type of planning you are doing to do that one piece of work. It's developed in practical detail the best manner of doing it, and it will be determined of how much time required. Please highlight. We are not talking about or we are not describing about the method. Okay, we are analyzing the method. We are analyzing how this method is utilized to do the work. Okay, but we are focusing on time requirement. That's what I highlight because all the three studies will look somewhat similar. Okay, so when we talk about time and motion study, for this method, for this work, how much time is required? That's about time and motion. Okay. So time study measures the time it takes to complete a task. Motion study analyze the movements involved in completing a task. That's why we cannot actually separate both. Okay, like this one is separate and that one is separate. So we'll talk both together. Time and motion study. Necessity. Yes, you need to standardize the method and conditions of work. So you need to define what an average worker can do. Okay. So we know the law, right? One hour, one day வந்து எவ்வளவு hours laborers work பண்ணலாம் ஃபேக்டரியில. Okay, you say that it's 9 to 5 job. இல்லைன்னா 8 hours shift சொல்லுவோம். அந்த 8 hours எப்படி fix பண்ணாங்க தெரியுமா? ஒரு நாளைக்கு 24 hours இருக்குல்ல, அதே 8 hours கூட work பண்றாங்க. See, usually when we say 8 hours sleep is needed, 8 hours for sleeping, 8 hour for working, and remaining 8 hours for his personal life. Okay, தூங்கி direct office வருவானா இல்லையே? தூங்கி direct இதுக்கு வரணும்னு அவசியம் இல்லையே. So the main 8 hours is for working, remaining 16 hours you do. That's your personal life. So it will define what an average worker can do. That's about the time and motion study. Actually, there are two sides of time study. You say it's mechanical and human. Probably your ultimate job is how best a job can be done with respect to this time. If you reduce the time of the worker, definitely he may not be performing well. Okay, just imagine you're going to write a 3 hours answer paper in your exam. 3 hours எல்லாம் என்னங்க இது 2 hours முடிக்கணும் என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க ஐயோ எனக்கு ஆசை தெரியுமே டைம் இல்லையே இதுக்கே டைம் பத்த மாட்டேங்குது that's what will happen. What are the terms connected with time and motion study? We'll go for operational analysis because we need to analyze. We are time cautious. Which and all things can be eliminated? Which and all things can be combined? Which can be sequenced properly so that the job is done easily? Because we are talking about motion study also. Okay. So the aim is to determine the best way and apply the methods, materials, tools, equipments, working condition, human requirements, everything. Then job standardization also has to be taken because when we talk about performing a job, we need to work this under a command. Okay, so we'll go for recording the exact method and establish the means. Job analysis, it will determine the essential factors in a specific kind of work, qualification of a worker necessary and its performance. Comparative motion study, time study, motion study. Yes, there is a dissimilarity. You should not check that both are similar. It's not continuing term, time and motion. Time is different, motion is different. So we know the similarity. We are talking about which motions are helpful, which motions are not helpful. Motions வேணும் okay அந்த movements வேணும்னா அதுக்கு time allocate பண்ணும். Motions useless you need not allocate the time. When you talk about the dissimilarity, division of work can be taken in the case of time study. In the case of motion study, you have to divide into elements of operation. Probably you might be discussing about the methods and equipment used, how the motions are indirectly considered. Whereas if we go over here, you're going to analyze the motion, how the operators are training, and so on. Okay. Importance setting up production standards, standards for cost purpose and basic incentives has to be provided. How far the measurements are done. So this and all has to be done. Okay. So I'm not going line by line. It's called all for points only. What are the factors to be considered for commencing the time study? Probably when you talk about motion study, you have to know actually what type of work you're planning, how the workspaces are allocated, and what appliances are there, and how it's satisfactory. Performing the operations in the correct sequence without interpretations, the interruptions, minimum involvement of human effort should be there. Okay, that's about time. Now we'll go for work study. Let me go for definition. Please quite give importance for this. Work, you examine the human work. See, when we talk about time and motion study, there are two sides, right? One is mechanical, one is human. Am I right? You are fixed with this, right? See, we were discussing time and motion study. Under this, we can talk in two angles, two sides. One side is talking about what mechanical side. Okay, one is talking about human side. When we talk about human work, we talk about work study. Okay. So you examine the human work in all the contests. You go for systematic investigation. Probably this will involve method study and work measurement, which is called as time study. See, time study. See, all are everything clubbed only. There's a small difference. So method study will be helping you to develop an improved procedure. So ultimately, this human is capable of this one, okay. But if you improve the procedure, if you synchronize the procedure, that will be helpful. So ultimately, your time is going to be reduced. So sync பண்ணா நல்லா இருக்கும். And time study will help you to find the study for the time to complete a job. So the aim is to find the best and most efficient way of using the available resources and all. So what is the available resources? Usually we call this as 4M, materials, money, and machinery. So that's about work study. Now we'll go for method study. Let's go for the definition. It's a systematic investigation of the existing method. Please highlight. How are you going to do the job in order to develop and install an easy, rapid, efficient, effective, and less fatiguing procedure for doing the same job at a minimum cost? Please highlight the three words here. So one is existing method, one is same job, and minimum cost. சேம் ஜாப் எக்ஸிஸ்டிங் மெத்தட்ல பண்றதை விட என்ன பண்ணா டெவலப் பண்ணா இன்ஸ்டால் பண்ணா பெட்டரா இருக்கும் ஸோ தட் த காஸ்ட் இஸ் எஃபெக்டிவ் ஓகே it's an integrated approach of time and motion study. So you will be applying both. You cannot say this one and that one separately. You have to apply both. So action needed, unnecessary emotions எல்லாம் eliminate பண்ணுங்க. Sequence of operations கரெக்டா சேஞ்ச் பண்ண முடியுதான்னு பாருங்க. சேஞ்ச் பண்ண முடிஞ்சா பண்ணிட்டு போங்க. And probably we might be combining motion study and time study both here. And usually we'll go for uniform application, standard practice, continuous review, and credit distribution. So how far you can distribute the credit. There'll be a department working under this called as method department. So they'll be connecting the production lines with the design officers and lean management technique also will be done. Okay, lean management. So more about method department. It's an improved, new and improved method will be developed in one department and that will be spread out over the entire plant. Preferably, they want to see with the help of AI, we are able to do so many things. Okay. And a new method must not be forgotten between the orders. So order to order changes, you should not you are utilizing the new method and you have to properly do it. And methods department should always aim to go and improve at better basis. நீங்க புதுசா பண்ணீங்க சொல்லி சொதப்ப கூடாதுல்ல. And for successful control of method study, there should be a proper cooperation. You have to gain employees' cooperation. The success lies in getting new methods and new ways. Okay, how we are going to appropriately sit. So that's about the sitting. Actually, it's a very small topic. Okay.